The world had gone dark again. The sky was full of cinders and the air was thick with smoke. London was burning and a young inventor named Humphrey Davy watched as his laboratory burned down around him. It was 1824 and this setback threatened to ruin his greatest invention yet, an invention that would change the course of history. Would Davy be able to rise from the ashes and light up the night? Or would his efforts end up going up in smoke? It was 1801 when Humphrey Davy first turned his attention to the problem of lighting. At the time, most cities were lit by oil lamps or candles. But these provided little light and were horribly expensive to operate. They also posed a serious fire risk. Then there was gas lighting, which was cheap and effective, but the fumes could be dangerous and the flames had to be manually lit, making nighttime travel a gamble. Could anything be done to make the darkness more bearable? And what if something even better were possible? Humphrey Davy was a scientist with a fascination for electricity. Like many inventors, he experimented at home. He mixed chemicals and conducted reactions, searching for something to power the next great innovation. And then one day, while working with two recently invented devices, the electric arc lamp and the chemical accumulator, everything changed. For the first time ever, Davy saw continuous electric light. With excitement, he ran around his house, frantically turning on every lamp he could find so that everyone could see his discovery. But the moment was short-lived. The lights flickered, then faded, then died. Something was wrong. The carbon rod used in the lamp had burned away, plunging Davy's room into darkness. Undeterred, Davy returned to his research. He knew he had glimpsed something amazing. It was his obsession from that point on to harness the power of electricity to shine light into the darkness of the night. And it all came down to this, his latest experiment. But when his lab burned down, Davy thought his dreams were dead. But then he remembered something. In science, no result is ever truly lost. All discoveries are building blocks on the path to innovation. Failure simply means trying a different path. Inspired, Davy got to work, piecing together the remains of his lab and testing new materials. After months of work, he finally settled on a new design. His arc lamp was now powered by a series of glass cells filled with acid and separated by zinc plates. It worked perfectly, lasting 4 hours at a time. But there was a problem. While powerful, the device produced an ugly green glow. Davy realized that to change the world, he would need help. He reached out to Sir Charles Bagot, owner of a local copper mine and former member of Parliament, and convinced him to invest in his research. Together, they built a new lamp that could produce enough light to illuminate an entire street. And in 1807, their arc lamp was installed in the London and Westminster Bridge, where it was seen by thousands. Finally, Davy's invention was changing the world, illuminating the darkest corners of London. But he wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. Over the next 2 decades, Davy continued inventing, patenting over 50 improvements on the arc lamp. His lamps were installed in factories, shops, and homes. Streets were suddenly awash with brilliant white light. London was never the same. When you think of the invention of the light bulb, you probably think of one man, Thomas Edison. But the truth is that Edison wasn't the first to invent an incandescent light bulb. In fact, several people had already invented similar devices. But Edison's version was the first to catch on. So why did Edison's light bulbs become famous? Why were other inventors' bulbs ignored? As a kid, Thomas Edison loved taking things apart and putting them back together. He would tinker with clocks and watches, figuring out how they worked. And he was especially fascinated by electric currents. Currents were a mystery to most people. How could invisible energy be so powerful? And what could it do? It was a question that consumed Thomas Edison. He dedicated himself to studying electricity. And soon he was inventing devices that shocked the world. When Thomas was just 19 years old, he invented the universal stock printer, an automatic telegraph printer that printed letters and numbers in different colors. It was an instant success. By age 21, he'd made his first fortune. But money didn't bring happiness. In fact, It had the opposite effect. The freedom to pursue any project he wanted left Thomas feeling unfulfilled. He suffered from anxiety and struggled to sleep. And without direction, he felt lost. He needed a challenge. He needed a purpose. And then one day he had a brainstorm. Why not harness electricity to light up the darkness? It seemed like the perfect challenge, something to fill his life with purpose. Thomas set up shop in his basement and got to work. He spent weeks designing, testing, and redesigning. He created a simple light bulb with a glass bulb filled with an inert gas and encased in a vacuum chamber. And then he inserted a high-resistance wire that glowed brightly when current passed through it. On October 1879, Thomas turned on his light bulb. It lasted for 40 hours. His dream had come true. Electricity could light the darkness. But there was a problem. The light bulb worked great in theory, but it wasn't very practical. The gas inside the bulb was toxic. And if the vacuum chamber cracked, the whole thing would explode. But Thomas wasn't deterred. He redoubled his efforts and worked tirelessly to improve his design. He tried different materials, conducting thousands of experiments. It was grueling work, but eventually he solved the problem and created a safe, affordable, long-lasting light bulb. His Menlo Park team installed his latest light bulb in a large warehouse near their lab. And on New Year's Day 1880, they invited everyone from the local community to come see the spectacle. An electrical cable stretched for over a mile, connecting Menlo Park to downtown Newark, New Jersey. As the crowd gathered, waiting for the big event, Thomas set up his control panel in a small shack. When everything was ready, he pulled the switch and threw the breaker. Suddenly, downtown Newark was illuminated like daytime. The crowd went wild. Thomas had proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that his light bulb could change the world. So why did everyone forget about all the other inventors who created similar devices? Well, it's because of Thomas Edison. Before Edison, most people considered electricity too dangerous to mess with. But Edison changed everything. He founded the Edison Electric Illuminating Company and brought electricity to millions of homes and businesses. His light bulbs became a staple of modern life. And before long, cities across America were glowing with electric light. But the real reason for Edison's success is summed up in one word: marketing. And like most inventors, Edison understood the value of publicity. He drew crowds to his lab, inviting reporters and photographers to capture the excitement. Then he went on tour, bringing his light bulbs all over the country to show off his invention. It was a masterclass in hype and promotion. And the result was unprecedented demand for Edison's product. Suddenly, people everywhere wanted electric light in their lives. In just a few years, Edison's company grew to include over 3,000 employees and served hundreds of thousands of customers. Electric light was changing the way people lived, worked, and socialized. Before long, it would change the world forever. Inventions don't happen overnight. They're usually the result of years, even decades of work. In the case of electricity, the hard work of dozens of inventors spanning generations finally bore fruit. Some inventors toiled in relative obscurity, others achieved fame and fortune, but all of them deserve credit for bringing light into our lives.